Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from DeltaCX.com. We're a full service CX and UX agency and consultancy. Check us out. We do projects, training, and consulting. And this is the show I do every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. It is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and I take your questions for about an hour, and people can send their questions ahead of time through deltacx.com/links. You're welcome to go there and send questions all week long. I queue them up and we get to those first. So that means that I actually have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions ahead of time. I know some YouTubers who have so many people coming to their live streams that they can only take questions that they've been given ahead of time. As of now, I'm not that busy, and I can also take some questions from the chat room, but I think eventually we might be that busy. So let's cover ourselves in lip balm. And let's also thank the people who have pressed the join button on YouTube and are giving $3 to $10 per month to me and the channel. Keeps me in streaming software and delicious chocolate chips, which I definitely ate today. So thanks to all of you. The chocolate is delicious. I hope you can all have some someday. Show up at my house. No, don't show up at my house. Show up at my wedding. Yeah, that's it. I should really bring some chocolate chips there. That would seem on theme. All right, so let's jump right into the questions that we have. And I'm here for an hour and I have 5 questions, so I should be able to handle a few more. If you have a question or a follow-up question to any of these, please ask it live in the chat. I'll also try to do a better job than usual on keeping track of the questions coming in anonymously, which, yikes, why is they come in through the email. Give me 1 second to clear out my email a little bit. Okay, sorry, email on phone and computer, not synchronized. Come on, friendly robots. Okay, so our first question looks like this, and it says, "Hi, Debbie. I'd love to get some insight on how to approach an interview question that asks you to go through your research plan. More specifically, I'd love to know how to better respond to questions like, why did you choose this instead of this? Thank you so much." So this is one of those hard questions because I don't really have a good answer. If I asked you in an interview, what's your UX process, you should be able to tell me your UX process. If I ask you to go through your research plan, you should be able to go through your research plan. If I asked you why you picked this instead of this, you should know why you picked this instead of this. There really isn't a great answer for me here. I can't really give you good advice and say, oh yeah, you should always say this. That's what people want to hear. It's not about what people want to hear. They want to know how you think. So the right answer is whatever led you to make that decision. UX and CX are worlds of doing things based on evidence and data and insights and research and reasons. You planned research, you chose one method over another. Why? You did research. You chose to talk to X number of people instead of Y number of people. Why? So I can't give you one default answer. Hi, Manuel. It's not a show until Manuel is here. Everybody knows this. So I can't give you one default answer that you should always say because the answer is whatever your truth is. It's why you made that decision. I can't tell you why. Oh, thanks, Octavio. A member. Thank you so much. So I don't have an answer for you. I can't tell you what to say when people say, why did you make this decision? The right answer is the reason you made that decision. If you don't have a reason why you made a decision, that's a good time for you to kind of have a chat with yourself and make sure that as you are making decisions, you are knowing or remembering why you did that. Because now you know you're going to be asked that question. So it's important as you do stuff for you to make sure, If I had a job interview and someone were seeing this as a portfolio project and I had to tell them why I chose a diary study over observational research, I should make sure I know why I did that so that I can tell them. So that is the very long answer for I don't have a good answer. The answer is whatever your truth is, and I can't give you one standard answer to use. I hope that made sense. If you're here, you're welcome to ask a follow-up question. Anybody else here can certainly ask a follow-up question. Otherwise, I'm going to jump to the next question, which looks like this. What do you recommend next after Affinity Diagram is done when you're analyzing UX research insights and you're out of time? So, interesting question. I think the question is, what does out of time mean? Does that mean someone expects your final report, but you've only finished your Affinity Diagram and you didn't make a final report with your final insights and pain points and opportunities and suggestions and recommendations? It sounds like this is a good conversation to have with your manager, that you're not getting enough time to do your best work and that you realize now that you've run out of time because in order to do good work, you spent this long on planning. We can get our graphic up. You spent this long on planning, you spent this long on recruiting, you spent this long on running the sessions, you spent this long on analyzing them, doing your affinity diagram, finding the patterns and themes, and whoa, you didn't get as far as you wanted with your analysis and your insights and opportunities and your reporting because you ran out of time. How can you get more time next time? If your manager says, sorry, we always do research for 3 minutes and you're going to have to figure it out, then obviously you have to start cutting corners, which means you should talk to your manager and your team about how that affects the quality of the research. Hey, good quality research means I need another week from now. Okay, you gave me 2 weeks. Next time I need 3 or I need 4, whatever it is. But this time you only gave me 3. This is as far as I got. I whipped up a really fast PowerPoint, a handful of PowerPoint slides with a couple of key points on them, but I didn't have enough time to do my best work. So that's a conversation to have with people about how much time you do need to do your best work, and also a conversation to have about project risk and product risk and decision-making risk. What happens when we aren't doing our best research work and now we're going to be using information that might not be the best information as the source of our data? So there you go. Let's see. Oh, that question we answered last week. So I'm going to take it off the list. Shrivas, I see your question. I'm going to add it to the end of the list. This is the next question. Okay, this question says, we're working with a client who continues to question the language we've chosen to describe certain functions in the app. Every meeting, they have a new suggestion until we're back where we originally started. What are some methods for aligning stakeholders around an information architecture? Okay, so this is another tough one where, again, I feel like you need a manager's help, because my question is, what were you hired to do? If you were hired to come up with the best information architecture and naming and organization of things, and you've done some research and some other testing or whatever the case may be to come up with that, and the other people are like, no, call it this, that's what I like, or no, call it this, that's what we like to call it internally, then I think we need maybe a manager's help here. Sorry, Olivia the dog is excited. Do you want to be on the show? If you want to be on the show, I'll put you on the show, but you hate being on the show. It's probably her I assume her arch enemy is outside. She doesn't like him at all. I'll hold on a moment. I'm going to put you on the show. I'm going to put you on the show. Come here. Come here. I got you. I got you. I got you. If you're going to say woof woof, you can say it into the microphone. Oh, okay. Now let's chill out. Come here. Whoa. There, come on. Okay, can't say no to dogs. So Olivia's being crabby. I'm sure her arch enemy is outside and she's just woofing about it. So we'll just have a nice hug. She's a very huggy girl. Okay, so I think we have to talk about why is this person undermining you? If part of the scope of your project is to figure out the information architecture and give these things names that make sense to the users, then why is this person saying this? So I think if I were there, I would probably have to find some gentle way to say, hey, we certainly appreciate your ideas and we can certainly note them down, but you hired us to work with your users and customers to learn the terms that make the most sense to them so that you can build a system that is easy and intuitive and just makes sense to people the first time. That's what we're doing here. That's what you're paying us for. So, if you don't want us to go further with that and you just want to name things, you can. But we've written down some risks for you that you need to know about. You need to understand that the risk is that people can't make sense of this because you're using terms that they don't understand. The risk is that they think they can't find what they're looking for. Now they have to call customer support and say, where's this thing? I can't find it. So this sounds like something that might need a manager's intervention if you're not comfortable having that slightly awkward conversation with the person where, I've had conversations like this where we give a client their research insights and our suggestions, very specific and detailed suggestions, and then they go and do something else. And then they ask me what I think of it. And I say, I think it looks like you completely ignored our research. You just made the thing you wanted to make. So look, you can make the thing you wanted to make, but let's not pretend it's tied to this research. Let's not pretend it's research informed, and you can do that if you want. But then, why are you asking me what I think of it? I think it looks like the opposite of what we learned in research. Clients do this stuff. You want to go down now? Okay, thanks for hanging out. That was fun. So, yeah. So this is we have to have a conversation with the client because ultimately there's only, you can go with what you're finding makes sense to the users, or you can go with what this person wants you to go with. But where these are not the same thing, you run the risk that the whole point of what they're paying you to do right now is void and null. And it's just them saying, no, hey, I think it should be called this. So again, somebody needs to have the slightly awkward conversation with the client that says, hey, look, we're certainly open to your ideas, but you hired us to find the best terms. We're giving you the best terms. I guess you can overrule them, but then you sure are paying us a lot for you to come up with your own terms. And now you have the data that shows that that's not the terms your own users would use. So why would you pick terms that don't match the way they think of this? And again, that still might lead the client to say, but I like these terms and I'm going to use them. You go, great. So how about we stop working on the information architecture because you're just going to pick what you like and it doesn't really matter what we're finding the users want. And they'll either say, yeah, that sounds good. Or they'll say, no, wait a minute. And either way, you're having a conversation that sounds like it needs to be had. So before I get to the next question, everybody please remember to subscribe, and not just for dog content, but for actual CX and UX live group mentoring, as I like to call it. Let me put Shrivas's question on the list. And also Octavio has a question, so let me copy and paste that to the end of the list. And cool. Okay, so that was the client who likes to name their own things. Okay, so the next question sounds like a cousin of that question. Many people have the same problems. And as I like to say, if y'all had a decent manager, you probably wouldn't be coming to me. If y'all had a decent manager, you could just go to your manager, because in many cases, that is my first advice. Chances are you don't have a good manager. You don't have a manager in UX. You have a manager who won't support you or doesn't get what you do. So I'm doing the best I can. But these are many of the types of things that need managerial support. That's the manager's job. All right. Next question says, do you have any advice for working with a stakeholder who does not recognize your expertise or authority in your role? For example, a subject matter expert who jumps to designing UI elements when they're not a designer or a programmer, when you try to discuss user goals and use cases that the app needs to support. Oh, and sorry, and use cases, not use cases that the app needs to support. So this is a bit of a process problem, and I've got a graphic that I'm working on for my new book, which kind of shows the UX process as a bit of a chart or a diagram. Let's just go with Abby Covert's word and say diagram. And I have a picture of a star that says, you are here. And then it says, you should be here, you know, or like, we're here, you're here. And so the idea is to try to show someone the arc of a user-centered design process or human-centered design process and say, hey, we're over here defining the problem. We're just looking at use cases, or, you know, I would probably say problem statements, problem definitions, maybe use cases. Hey, we're over here. We're way over in this early part of I don't have a screen graphic for it. We're in this early part of this stuff. You're over here. You're over here, you're over here past solutions to branding and visual design. So, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, if you want to be involved in this, we're open to your ideas. We may or may not use them, since this is user-centered design and not stakeholder-centered design. So, you know, you have to say, hey, we're open to some of your ideas, but now is not really the right time to try to come up with the final visual design of individual elements, because that's not where we are in the process. And the best collaboration with you will happen if you join us where we are in the process now. And that's more around defining the problem statements, use cases, making sure that there's a good reason to even build whatever this is going to be. So that would be my suggestion for dealing with that. Again, possibly with a manager's help, but sometimes, depending upon your personality, the culture of where you live, your level and expertise, sometimes you're comfortable doing those. We'll get Alexandra's question up, and hello, Casey. We'll add your question to the list, but there's a few more people before you, so please note that it's going to be about 10 or so minutes from now, but we will get there. So let's see, and I think I have someone messaging me in Slack or something. Give me a second. Hold on. Okay, sorry, there's a Slack conversation that seemed to be waiting for me to respond to it, and I'm a little busy right now. Okay, so let's see. Next question is, here it is. All right. And I'll also check if we have any anonymous questions coming in. I don't want to miss those. Everybody knows sometimes I miss those because I have questions coming into like 4 different screens, and it's really easy to miss one. I've got 2. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Oh no, you've left a voice message. Oh, I am not prepared for voice messages, so I'm gonna have to look at the transcript. But thank you for being one of the few people who has left a voice message. I am just not prepared to deal with that right now. I've got too many questions. So we'll add your question in the middle because I missed it from before. And then someone else sent in one a few minutes ago about fashion. We'll get you on the list as well. All right. Lots of questions. We might be out of time for further questions, so hold off on extra questions because we might be closed for business. Holy cows, that's some fast typing. Well, it was a short sentence. Hey, YouTube watcher. Okay, I'm gonna say that's the last. So, oops, closed for questions. All right, so let's try to handle what I've got and see how we do. And this question says, please hold. Okay, what's a good way to approach usability testing of a beta version of a whole app with limited budget? What is a good starting point? I can evaluate usability of individual features or flows, but how do I test a whole app? Okay, super question, and we don't always get questions like this, so I'm so happy that you asked it. So first of all, when we have a whole app, remember that an app is really broken up into tasks. So ultimately, a whole app has multiple tasks. Chances are you won't be able to test all of those. So I would say make a list of the key tasks that happen in the app and maybe look at some of the ones that are really make or break situations. For example, your registration. If your registration sucks, nobody's getting to the next step. So maybe registration, maybe, again, I don't know what industry you're in. So, I think the question about fashion could have been the same I've asked. Oh, okay, maybe if it's a duplicate. Oh, maybe. Did you send one in privately and send it here? Is it a repeat from you? If not, if it's someone else, then we'll put them together. So first of all, let's break this question into pieces. How do we usability test on a limited or no budget? That's hard because ultimately we do want to give our usability testers an incentive, and we do want there to be at least 5 of those people. Very often I give them $15 or $20 American. You'd have to translate that for where you are or what makes sense. And the cheapest, fastest way to do it is unmoderated usability tests where you give people some tasks to do and they record a video and you watch that video later. You are not there live, which is why we call it unmoderated. If you were there live talking to them or asking them questions, that would be moderated. So fastest and cheapest is usually going to be unmoderated. I like to use UX Tweak, not sponsored. They don't pay me, I pay them. So you can check out UX Tweak as a not free but less expensive option, but you should still put some money aside for your participants, or you may find it hard to get them. If your company is, because especially you don't just want your current customers, you want customers, you want target people who aren't your customers, because your customers already are familiar with your system. They are biased, they are savvy. So make sure you're getting at least 2 or 3 of the 5 who are not your customers and can look at this with fresh eyes. So break this into tasks. Work with your teammates on what you feel are the most important tasks to test. Now, if somebody says, we expect you to test all of them, you say, great, I just need the time and the budget to do that, but you have to have a plan. You have to have an answer for that. You could say, I'll get back to you later, but be prepared for that question. Hey, I could test every task in this app with 5 people, but that would take 5 people doing 6 tasks each, and there's 30 tasks. That means I have to run this test 5 times with different people so that I don't wear anybody out and make them use this thing for hours. You know, hey, that's going to cost us X dollars in incentives, and here's how much time I'm going to need to watch all of those videos and come up with a report on what's going well and what's not, and what we should do about that. So that would be my advice. I hope that helps. Tasks. Break it down to tasks. Talk to your teammates. Say, hey, here's a list of all the tasks that people can do. Hi, Udipta. I don't know why you're in LinkedIn. That's weird. Maybe you're here to say, why didn't I respond to the Slack conversation? Yeah, so I think if you can't identify a small handful of 4, 5, 6 tasks that would test most of it, then you have to talk to your team about either prioritizing it or giving you more time and more budget to test all of it. And if they say, no, this is your time and budget, then you make sure that you've documented, this was my time and budget, so I only tested these things. Job applications. Good. There you go. Let's see, where were we? Okay, Octavio's question. We're up to that. Okay, Debbie, is it possible to design a good enough UX without research? What alternatives exist to overcome the lack of research? Okay, so the key word here is good enough. And what ends up happening there is internal to our company, very often there are our teammates who might be engineers, product managers, marketers, business analysts, and other stakeholders. And they might decide something is good enough. But sometimes there is the continent of South Africa, the continent of South America, I'm thinking, between, or country of South Africa, between what internally our teammates think is good enough and what the customer thinks is good enough. And of course, the funny snake-eating tail part there, though it's not funny, is without research, we don't even know what the customer would think is good enough. We're really guessing that what we think is good enough is going to be good enough. We are usually wrong about that. So I think the question is, what is good enough? And if we are releasing something that we know isn't 5-star quality out of 5 stars, why are we putting that out there? Why are we putting anything less than high quality out there? Why are we putting something out there that we guessed at? Do we really think that's a time saver? Why are we putting something out there that will probably make us pause our work later to figure out what went wrong, to have to fix it? Is that good enough? Is that a time saver? So obviously a lot of my new book cover that ground, but those are the conversations to have with your teammates. What is our definition of good enough? How will we know when something is good enough? Usually projects go with metrics, KPIs, things we're measuring that tell us if this project was a success. How are we going to measure if this is good enough? Now, as for your own work, if you have no research, you're guessing. There are things you can try to do without research, but they're not optimal. For example, you can try to talk to some customer support representatives and see if there are complaints about the part of the product or service that you're going to work on. Can you get some second or third hand information from customer support that tells us what are people complaining about? What are they saying? What problems are they having? Again, this is still not as good as talking to people directly, but it's a what can we do in a bad case scenario answer. So where can we find, does marketing have any survey data that you can go through that tell us what people think of this or what they're saying? Now, sometimes that's garbage. Some people say, I want you to make a flashing sequin unicorn or I'm not buying this. And then they wouldn't buy it anyway because they don't like your price or they like someone else better. So we can't just go by, oh, well, people said this, so that must be true. This is where research would help us tell the difference. But any data we have is a place to start. You just have to use your critical thinking to try to determine if this is good data that we should work with or possibly bad or flawed data that we should not really rely on. So it is hard to overcome a lack of research. There are things that we can try to do, but they often don't lead to something that is good enough by customer standards. It's typically good enough for internal workers, and then we're all surprised later we have to go back and fix it. Good luck. All right, and we're halfway through, so please don't forget to subscribe and tell people about it. Did you know it's the 3rd anniversary of our channel? So thanks to everybody who's been a part of it for any of the last 3 years, and of course, here's to many more. This question came in anonymously and says, hello, Debbie. I wanted to ask, I saw a comment saying graphic design is the mother of all design. I argue that it wasn't correct. I needed an explanation on that. Okay, first of all, my advice would be, don't argue that. It's a very silly point. There's nothing good that can happen from that conversation, and chances are the person who said it will believe they are right, no matter what you produce or what you say. If this was a social post where people were trying to rile people up, then you fell for it. Don't press like. Don't reply to that person because you are just lifting them up in the social media algorithm and it sounds like a meaningless post that we shouldn't entertain. Even if it's something a coworker says, it's just foolish. So what? Graphic design is the mother of all design. What does that mean? What should I do differently? You know, that's an opinion. You know, like some people say, oh, the only true art is painting or sculpture or whatever. Fine, good luck, whatever. How nice for you. You think that. Wonderful. Let's move on. So I think the question is, why are we arguing this? Who cares? Why is this worth our time? Does it really matter? I don't think it does. So ultimately, you know, what's the mother of all design? It doesn't make sense because there's a zillion things that call themselves design. You could arrange flowers nicely and call that design. You could arrange furniture and call that design. You could do jewelry design. What's the mother of all of these designs? Who cares? Pick an Egyptian god or go before that. Doesn't matter. So what? If it's true, so what? And if it's false, so what? Just doesn't sound like a conversation worth your time. I think if someone said to me like, "Oh, well, graphic design is the mother of all design," I might say nothing. I might say, sure, that's your opinion. Cool. Or I might say, and how does that affect how you work? What? Okay, next question. Hi, Debbie. Should the approaches for researching and designing be different for general audiences versus specific audiences? Complex software in a knowledge-dependent domain. Okay, so Alexandra, that was your question. Was the fashion question the same question? Did you put it in both places? Ah, yes. Okay, it's the same question. It's you. You're everywhere. Okay, so we're finally up to Alexandra's question. Thanks for your patience. So, should the approaches for research and designing be different for audiences like a fashion marketplace? You'd said fashion in your second version. Versus specific audiences, complex software in a knowledge-dependent domain. So ultimately, research techniques are research techniques. Design techniques, best practices, principles, patterns are design techniques. But we might have to plan these things differently. How we research e-commerce may or may not be the same as how we research complex software. It's less about, hey, no, it's fine. It's less about the audience. To me, it's less about the audience or the industry, and it's more about what you're trying to learn. What's the outcome of this research? Are we trying to learn behaviors and tasks? Then we're probably using observational research. That means people in the fashion marketplace, we got to watch them search and shop and decide and check out. People in a SaaS system, we got to watch, is this the purchasing of the SaaS system? Then we have to watch them search and shop and decide. Is this the use of the SaaS system? Then we have to give them some tasks and see how they do it, the way they do it now outside of our company or the way they do it now inside of our company, which is a little bit more evaluative. Sure, Octavio. So I think it's not so much about I'm doing different approaches, but it's about tailoring those approaches for what you're trying to learn. You have to match the methods to what you're trying to learn, because ultimately observational research is a great way to go no matter what you're trying to learn. But it depends upon that task. If this is a task that you can watch in 1 or 2 sessions with this person, that's a great way to go. If this is something that tends to take place over days or weeks or even months, you can't watch that. You're probably going to have to use a diary study. Am I along the right lines, Alexandra, of the answer you were looking for? I can't tell if I'm in the right neighborhood. So we might need a diary study or something that's more longer term if this is something that can't be seen in 1 or 2 sessions as an example. So I think it's a little bit about the, it's ultimately about the task. If the task can happen in a certain way, we probably want to watch it. If the task happens over a long period of time, we really can't watch it. Like I was a participant in a research study around how I write and create online courses. You can't watch that. That's not really an observational research thing. You're either going to have to ask me to diary it, journal it as I do my next one, whenever that is, or you have to ask me to talk through it and try to see how much of it you can try to capture, knowing that people's memories are imperfect. They don't always remember their steps or remember them correctly. I mean, when's the last time I made a video course? Almost a year ago. So if I try to recall that for you, I might accidentally leave things out. But it might still be the right method to use, because we cannot sit for 4 months and watch someone create a video course. Alexandra says, yes, thanks. I design SaaS products. Sometimes it's hard for me to apply advice. Right. So ultimately, methods of both research and design have to match to the outcome you're trying to create and the task the user has. If the task is really quite fixed in the SaaS system, update a record, add some information to a record in the system, that's certainly something we can watch. Hey, share your screen. Show me how you do this now. Oh yeah, I have to open up this spreadsheet. I have to copy the information. I have to go into your system or a competitor's system and I have to paste it over here. Then I double check it by doing this. Okay, we could probably watch that. But there are some other things that are not SaaS systems. SaaS systems can probably be observational studies in most cases, but other things that especially touch the physical world, like car shopping, or I'm writing a course. Well, that happens in so many places in my house, and then I record the course, and then I edit the course, and I'm looking over there because my vocal booth is on that side of the house, and so you can't really watch that. All right, I hope that helps. Again, if you ever have any specific questions like, I'm trying to study this, what's a good method? You can always join our Slack and Discord communities, which are totally free. Join one, join both, completely free, no fees, no memberships. deltacx.links will help you find our Slack and Discord communities. Sorry, everybody, I'm going to have to switch to... throat lozenge, not sponsored, but we've been doing a lot of singing around the house in preparation for our big wedding party in Tucson, Arizona in January, and you're invited. So if you can get to Tucson in January for our big karaoke party, let me know and I'll make sure you get the invitation. All right. We have a question about interviewing for a researcher job. Let's take a look. It's from Casey. Thanks for your patience. Sorry, Casey. All right, I have a second round interview coming up for a UX researcher position where I'll be doing a mock moderation. Any tips for successful moderating, or better yet, major moderation mistakes to avoid? This is kind of like the first question we had, which is like, no offense, but if you qualify for a UX research job, you kind of should be able to do research moderation. I don't know if this is your very first job ever, but hypothetically, if you qualify for the job and you're familiar with moderating research sessions, you should know what to do. It's a little late for me to try to be like, oh God, do this and do this. What can I tell you? Listen to the other person. Don't talk over them. Don't ask leading questions. Don't ask double-barreled questions. Don't ask questions that ask them to predict their future. Don't make assumptions about what they think or feel. I've seen some mistakes there. I've even seen some Instagrammers saying like, oh, if someone touches their ear or the back of their neck, ask them why they're uncomfortable. And my thought was, I've had a rash on the back of my ear for like 30 years. I'm not emotionally uncomfortable with your research question. I have a rash. This thing comes and goes and I hate it and it's embarrassing and I just told you all about it. So don't make any assumptions about what people think or feel, even from body language like I scratched my ear. other body language you can try to say, something looks weird here. Like if somebody goes, okay, well, that looks like someone who seems to be frustrated, but hopefully they'll tell you more. So I don't know if this is generative or evaluative, but unfortunately, I don't have great advice here, because if they're trying to see how you moderate a session, you should just moderate a session. Oh no, don't give that to her. She ate the bed. I've been putting it in her other bed. Sorry, we give the dog a treat and we usually put it in her bed, but she tore her bed up and I didn't sew it up yet. Dogs do that sometimes. So Casey, let me know if you have a follow-up question. Sorry I don't have a more specific question, but it's like the question just seems a little strange to me, because it's like, hey, they're going to interview me and make me show how I do my work. Any tips on how to do my work? I know it just sounds weird. I know you're not asking that the way I said it, but and also I don't know what this company's looking for. I could be like, hey, here's what I like to see. And then they're looking for something else, then you're mad at me. So all I can say is be you and do your best. That's all you can do. Oh, have I really caught up to all the questions? Did anybody not get their question answered other than YouTube watcher? Am I really caught up on all the questions? Just checking. All right. I guess I have time for a couple of more questions. FV says, I'm interviewing for senior UX and the final step is to work for them for 2 days. Oh, that is a question. Oh, are you the original question asker? No, that was Casey. So let's sneak in FV's follow-up question, because it kind of relates to the last one. So FV is adding stuff faster than I can copy and paste it. But let's get it all up here anyway, and we'll use it as kind of a follow-up question because it's a little related. You can all see I copy and paste from something that shows an avatar, but you're not seeing it. All right, let's add this as a follow-up question, then we'll get to YouTube watchers' question. Okay, so this question says, I'm interviewing for a senior UX position, and the final step is to work for them for 2 days. I'll join their Slack, receive a task each day that I need to execute, and present at the end of the day. I can interact with people on Slack to ask questions and get feedback before the final presentation to the hiring managers. I don't know the salary and I'm not getting paid, and I'll need to take time off from my work to do that. What's your opinion about this method? Unethical. Completely unethical. If someone expects you to work for, as soon as you are working for someone, even if it's a test drive or audition or sample, you should be paid for that time. Especially if you are taking off from work where you will probably lose money. You should be paid for that time. So I'm not against the idea that they want to test you out. I think that's a great way for people to see if they like working together and if they like your work. I think 2 days is too short. I think it should be longer. There's only, so much that you can have onboarded and know what's going on there in 2 days. I do think 2 days is too short, but I absolutely believe this should be paid. You're welcome to find the spot in this video and, start at that time and send this to them. This should absolutely be paid. Asking someone for real work that is unpaid is absolutely unethical. There's nothing ethical about it. It is not the right thing. It also does not show respect for you. It doesn't show respect for your time, especially your time away from a paying job where you probably don't want to burn any bridges. So I'm for them testing you out, I think 2 days is too short, and they should be paying you. I absolutely do things like this, and I absolutely pay you. My boyfriend once auditioned for a job a few years ago, and I think it was going to be for weeks. He ended up quitting after the first week. He didn't even like it. He didn't make it through the test time. He was miserable. I mean, he liked the job in theory, and then when he actually got to it, he didn't like it, even if he was good at it. And they paid him. They paid him for 40 hours. So that's the right thing to do. That's all I can tell you. So we've got a couple of questions popping up. So give me 1 second. Let's get this question in the YouTube list. Okay, let's make sure we next get to YouTube watchers question. Thanks, FV. Good luck with that. Tell them I said so. And then we'll circle back to Deborah's questions and Manuel's questions, since I think we will have time for that. Okay, so YouTube watcher says, what are the must-dos you would advise a person joining a new company as the sole UX researcher upon starting? Like, reader, didn't you ask me this last week? I'm having deja vu. I feel like you asked me this last week. I feel like we've done this. Did we do this? YouTube watcher, you silly goose. Just in case we didn't do this last week, I would say, no, it was a different question. Ha ha ha. Okay, if you say so, because it looks really familiar to me. I feel like we did this. In fact, I think you had 2 questions last week about your upcoming new job, of which we are very proud of for you. Okay. So, yeah, definitely read prior research reports, get involved in the Slack, take any training that they have, ask them for all the product documentation. So learn as much as you can about what this company makes or does. Again, if there's any company training for new people, make sure you go to that. See if you can be assigned a buddy, someone who is your go-to person to answer questions. See if you can get multiple buddies. Maybe you've got a UX, or you don't have you're the only UX researcher. Is there a designer? Can you ask the designer some questions, especially a more senior designer? Is there a product manager you can learn from? What about an engineer? What about somebody from marketing? You know, I love when we talk to customer support reps. Is there a customer support rep who can give you a readout on what's going on lately in calls or complaints or emails or live chats? Has marketing been running any surveys? Do we have a sense of where people are running into the 4 horsemen of bad UX? Frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. So yeah, there's lots of stuff to do, and as I've said, ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't try to look cool and make it look like you know everything. It's your first day at work. It's your first week at work. It's your first month at work. Ask questions. I know I would always rather have somebody ask me a question than not know something or guess about it. So ask, 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 ask. There you go. Good luck. When are you starting this job? I feel like it's been coming in the future forever. Okay, we've got Deborah and then we've got Manuel. That's probably all we have time for. So again, questions are closed. No more questions. Thank you. All right, so Deborah says, can you go back to the predict the future comment? Any thoughts on how to go in this direction for a study knowing it's not truly possible? So I need more information there, Deborah. Are you running research where somebody is pressuring you to ask people about possible future behaviors? This is typically market or marketing research, where we ask people, if we did this, would you like it? If we did this, would you buy it? If we did this, what would you pay for it? If we did this, would your coworkers pay for it? If we did this, would your cousin Jimmy want it? So I think we have to remember that while these are questions we can ask, They're usually crappy questions with answers that we can't take seriously. And an example of that, and this is totally Googleable, is there was a company that made the news, Shoes of Prey. Prey. And they made the news for going out of business. And this was probably 3 years ago now. And what happened was they had run this type of research where they asked customers, would you like to be able to customize shoes? And enough people said yes. So they spent a lot of money building an online tool where people could customize shoes. And then they found that almost nobody used it. And they were confused. They were like, you know, as I say, they were sitting around a meeting table, shrugging at each other, going, well, how did this happen? We asked people if they wanted to customize shoes. They said, yes, we built it. What the hell? These people are liars. People are not liars. We asked them a crappy question. And the problem is that when you ask people to predict the future, they imagine something that is probably nothing like what you're going to build. So if you said to me, hey, Deb, would you like to drink water out of a cup? I would say, for sure. And would you buy a cup if we made a really good cup? Sure, I could always use another cup. Now, what cup are you going to sell me? I don't have handy at my desk a typical cup in Italy, but I can tell you it's about the size as this Lush hand cream. So here's my hand, and here's the typical size of a glass of water in Italy. Now, I come from America. This is my cup of water. If you make that and try to sell it to me, I'm going to go, oh yeah, no thanks. I drink water a liter at a time, thank you. Do not want. And you're going to go, WTF, we asked you if you wanted a cup to drink water out of. Survey said yes. We got you a cup. You're an asshole. And I go, no, you're the asshole. So Deborah, be careful, because this is going to paint research into a shitty corner where it's going to look like we ran bad research if we find, oh yeah, a survey says people want this thing. And then of course we don't build anything like what really solves their problem. My book is going to cover this, of course. My book that's coming out, some of you have heard about it. It's called Customers Know You Suck. And it's, I'm hoping it'll be out in November or December. So we're still working on it, finishing touches for the next month or so. So hopefully November. I'll be announcing the pre-orders here. So, Deborah, you're probably in a bad situation there if someone is saying, hey, go find some customers and ask them if they want this thing. I would make sure that when I write up that, if I do it, I would write, first of all, I'd push back against it. I would say that is not the right way to go. We might find that people say yes to be polite. Hey, remember, see if you can find past disaster. Remember that time we ran that survey and 64% of people said they wanted that, and then we built it and it turned out they kind of didn't want it, or they didn't want it the way we built it. So why are we doing this again? Here's what I recommend. Now you have to come prepared with a plan. Here's what I recommend. I'd like 3 or 4 weeks to do a generative research study. It's going to be an interesting exploratory discovery study that's going to tell us more about our target audience's behaviors, needs, and tasks. That way, instead of asking them, would they buy a thing, we're going to learn what they really need. And that way, we don't have to worry about cycles of guessing, of did we guess right what they need? We're going to know what they need because I will have found that out. Thanks for subscribing, Bruno. I hope others will subscribe too. Deborah, is this helping? Am I going in the right direction? Because again, when you stop typing to me, I don't know. It's a little lonely over here, me talking to a camera. Deborah says, more context. Would you trust this brand with your healthcare? Okay. So, right. So these are typical marketing and market research questions. Would you trust this brand with your healthcare? So that, again, is not UX research. It's market or marketing research, some of these aspects of trusting a brand. So first of all, if you do that research, you have to make sure they don't know you're from the brand, because that can bias the research as well. Hi, I'm Debbie from Delta CX. Do you trust Delta CX? No, I think you're a total idiot. Oh, super. that the survey would have to not make it look like it comes from healthcare company X. And I don't know where you work. I didn't open up LinkedIn. I'm just going to name an American healthcare company. I hope I guess wrong, but just to say, just have a name to put on this. Let's pretend you work for Cigna in America. You might not even be in America. So, hi, here's our survey. Do you trust Cigna with your healthcare? Now, ultimately, what will we get from that? An average? Well, the average doesn't really tell a story. It means some people like us and some people don't. We know that already. We know some people like us and some people don't. What are we really trying to learn here? That's the question. Go deeper. Peel away the onion. Go for the root. So, what are we trying to learn? Do you trust Cigna with your healthcare? I bet some people do and some people don't. Why? Why? And what's actionable here? And you're saying an interview would be more valuable. Interviews are always more valuable, and observational and ethnographic is better than that. But the interview is way more valuable. And the questions have to be, if it's existing customers, then the questions are open questions. Tell me about your experiences getting healthcare from Cigna or Company X. I'm making it up. If it's target customers who aren't your customer, maybe they're with a competing healthcare thing, they're with United, they're with Blue Cross, then the question is, tell me about your experiences with your healthcare provider. Oh yeah, Blue Cross, they're good at this, but oh man, they really messed this other thing up. I had to fight with them for a month on that, blah, blah, blah. Tell me about the last time you changed your healthcare. Remember, that could be an obstacle for people. They might trust your company because of whatever. I don't even know. We'd have to find that out. But they might not be able to switch to you. Well, yeah, Cigna sounds like a good company, but I've got Blue Cross because that's what my employer gives me. So now we have to learn more about, I didn't put it on my revised thing. Where's my end-to-end task thingy? Who knows where it is on my board? Help. Here's what I'm looking. Here's my screen, everybody. Help me find the end-to-end task analysis. Let's see. Not task analysis. The end-to-end customer journey. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. End-to-end task. Cool. Let's put this up on the screen. All right. This is what we have to learn. Trigger. I need to change my healthcare. I need new healthcare. Holy cats, I'm no longer covered. Holy cats. Trigger. Healthcare. Orbit. How am I going to evaluate and choose different healthcare providers? Which ones do I trust? Great if they don't know you're from Company X. Which ones do I trust? When I go to their websites, do their websites help me at all? Do I trust them? Can I find what I'm looking for? Okay, now decision making. Also part of Orbit. Decision making. How do I select a healthcare provider? Am I choosing on price? Am I choosing by my employer? Am I paying privately and being picky about it? Do I tend to go for the lower price things? Do I go for the higher price things? Do I tend to dig into all of the documentation on the different plans because I've got conditions and I need to know what they're going to cover related to them? That's still a lot of the orbiting. You're kind of not necessarily researching the ecosystem. They're not using Cigna or whoever now. It sounds like you're researching trigger and orbit. What makes me need this? And how am I going to compare different companies and decide who I trust? And I think that would be much better research than surveys saying, do you trust us? Yes, no. And then what? What does that mean? If I give you a 3, what does that mean? If I give you a 7, what does that mean? As Monty Python would say, perhaps both, maybe neither. So it doesn't help. Deborah, I hope that helps. And I don't think I've seen your name before. You new to us? Welcome. All right. And then we had Manuel's question about sus. And we're going to run a little late and make sure we get Manuel's question in, and then we're going to wrap up for now. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Tomorrow's show has Jen from Choice Hacking to talk about behavioral stuff. Yeah, Deborah, if you need more help, just track me down. Manuel says, what's your view on system usability scale for usability testing? Should we focus on it? No. But Manuel, you should tell me why, because you are a critical thinker and you are a smart person and you can take a look at system usability scale and tell me what's wrong with it, right? Let me open up the book I'm working on and read you what I've written about system usability scale. And now, an excerpt from Customers Think You Suck. Sorry, Customers Know You Suck. All right, let's see. System usability scale? Is that what it's called? Hold on. My document is still loading. If only I could spell. System usability scale. Here we go. Let's see if Manuel is responding. Oh, Janainya says, first time here. I can't believe it took me so long. I love it. Thanks. Yeah, come on over to YouTube. It's faster and better. Okay, so let's talk about system usability scale. I've got like a half a page on it in my book, and I'm just going to read that to you. Here's what it says. The system usability scale asks users to rate statements that are written in a way that don't match how most people think or speak, such as, I found the various functions in this system were well integrated. Do users know what's integrated into what and whether that was done well? I thought there was too much inconsistency in this system. Does the average user notice consistency or inconsistency? Do they know what we intended to be consistent? I found the system very cumbersome to use. Do they think of systems as cumbersome? Do they want to admit that they struggled? And on a side note, who still says cumbersome? I think that I would like to use this system frequently. This asks customers to predict what they might do in the future. It also assumes that frequency of use is important. And 5 of the 10 statements in the system usability scale are about how easy the system is to learn. Manuel says, I also found the 10 questions drive no outcome that would be useful. Yeah, meaningful, actionable, helpful. If you look at one of these measurement scales or whatever they are, and you look at them and you go, wow, if I got the results of that, I still wouldn't know what was going wrong, why, when, what to do about it, then feel free to throw it on the fire. Feel free to not use it. Just because the system usability scale exists and just because some companies use it doesn't mean you have to use it. You're welcome to think critically about it and say, aha, this thing will work well for my company or project because, or this thing would not work well for my company or project because. So make sure you've got good reasons for whatever your decision is, either way. So to me, I'm not a fan of system usability scale. It seems like a bunch of snooty questions asked in a language nobody speaks. Hands up, when's the last time any of you said the word cumbersome? Honey, have you ever said the word cumbersome? Many times. Because I'm cumbersome myself. He says he's cumbersome himself. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm going to keep you anyway. So yeah, these questions are cumbersome. All right. So we should wrap up for today. But thanks to everybody for some neato questions. Great to see some new peeps here. Manuel says, thanks for the answer. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm refreshing my chat thing. Don't forget, I'm here every Tuesday doing this. You can send questions ahead of time, so you're first on the list at deltacx.com/links. You can also join our Slack and Discord communities, which are completely free. Join one, join both. up to you. The Slack one's a little bit more active right now. Discord seems to be for the lurkers, and a community of lurkers is a quiet community. So I hope people will be a little bit more active there, and feel free to ask questions and post stuff to appropriate channels. So you can't all be lurkers. Come on. Hey, also remember this Thursday is our video networking adventures. You'll find that link in Slack and Discord in the live events channel, so make sure you're watching that. And again, we'll be back tomorrow with special guest Jen from Choice Hacking to talk about behavior in design. Always a good topic, one we should know more about. So with that, I'm going to play us out of here, and I will catch everybody tomorrow. Bye! Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are